first and foremost, Doechii is not a plant. Let's get that off rip. I told y'all before, I hate the word plant. Plant to me, when I hear the word plant, it reminds me of woke. You feel me? Plant is just a catch-all for any and everybody that in this hip hop sphere that niggas don't like. You feel me? Not only that they don't like, but they're getting buzzed, so that makes them a plant. Speaking of plants, um, so we gotta bounce back to Doja Cat. Not Doja Cat. the irony, right? What's the old girl name? Old girl that when they asked her to freestyle, Ice Spice. They asked her to freestyle, she started twerking. That's that's Ice Spice's entire career in a nutshell, right? But anyway, so if you don't know the dirt behind that, which you probably do if you're watching this video, watching this stream, she has said some out of pocket, well, has sent some text, you feel me? Says something out of pocket, along the lines of calling Doechii uh, the industry's chosen dark skin. Feel me? Which in itself is out of pocket for reasons that I don't have time and I don't care to get into. But especially in the context of some past issues that you feel me, Ice Spice has had surrounding allegations of colorism. But again, we're not going to get into that. And this is the part where I say, you feel me, withhold your pitchforks and torches for a second. Because this is something that I have said. If y'all have watched me for any length of time, y'all have heard me say this multiple times. Is that in every good lie, there is at least a small kernel of truth. You feel me? Even if the lie is 90% falsehood, right? It's that last 10% that makes you say, this is what conspiracy theories are. In my opinion, there's a conscious effort being made to in wrestling terms to push Doechii, right? And to push her into rooms and push her into spheres that are not that don't really align with her presentation, right? Don't really align with what she's all about as an artist. It reminds me a lot of when SZA and what's the old sad fat boy name? I don't say fat as an insult, it's just as an observation. Rod Wave. It reminds me of I wasn't trying to be funny. No, it was that's right. It wasn't SZA. It was that's even worse. That's even worse. Ari is even worse. You understand what I'm saying? Because SZA at the very least, SZA occupies that side chick lane, right? SZA makes side chick music. You feel me? Ari makes like, for lack of better phrasing, neo soul. You understand what I'm saying? I can very well see her fitting in like the late '90s, early 2000s era of R&B of R&B acts. You understand what I'm saying? Whose idea was it? That was I don't know, but that's kind of what I'm getting into, right? And somebody set it up top. No, when Ari went on tour with Rod Wave, I asked like whose idea was that? You understand what I'm saying? These are two completely different waves of music fans. I feel like and this isn't necessarily. I've Doechii in a lot of ways is being pushed. I feel like as the alternative. You know what I mean? To the rap girly formula. You know what I'm saying? Um, and as a result, we're getting to the point now where it's begin to border on overexposure because of the fact that she still occupies a niche that is not exactly geared toward mainstream appeal. I'm sitting there and I'm asking myself, who is this for? Right? Who is this track for and who does it serve? Again, a lot of this is echoing the some of the points that Sean C made. Because Playboy Party fans is not listening is not going to listen to this remix. Maybe the Weekend fans, but I don't even think Doechii is not really in that kind of lane. It just feels like, her hand again, it's not her fault necessarily, but it's her handlers just trying to tack her onto everything that's popping. Know what I mean? They're trying to tack her onto as many, they're trying to put her into as many rooms as possible to expand, you feel me, her audience as wide as possible. When her appeal is not really geared toward that. You gotta read the room. You feel me? And you gotta know your audience. You understand what I'm saying? You got to know, you feel me? You gotta have an idea of what is going. All right, I'll give y'all a perfect example. I said before that it'll be like if in the Shador Sanders video, I had made a comment about collaborating with Perna, right? You know what I mean? Why? like just from a logical perspective, why is Bill going to be on a Brandon Perna video or vice versa? And where and how we may be fans of each other, but how and why would those worlds collide? What is the logical how did you get from now? It would make sense for like FD and Grossi because they already have an established relationship that folk know about. You understand what I'm saying? But if you see Brandon Perna pop up on one of my joints, the first thing you're going to say is why? What are we doing? You know what I'm saying? Like what's happening? You dig what I'm saying? So again, it becomes a question of it gives off the appearance, it gives off the airs of attempting to ride coattails, which is the last thing, you feel me, you want from somebody that's had the type of year. All we need is more is for her to continue to doing her own thing, which that's another big part of it, is that a lot of folk, anything and everything that's associated with Kendrick, they just want to throw it out they're going to throw it out with the bath, because if Kendrick weren't already as big as he is, you can make the argument of he being overexposed. But primarily, that's because of that's because of the way that his fans tend to move. You understand what I'm saying? Somebody said that Kendrick fans are the new Eminem fans. I don't disagree with that, and I say this as a Kendrick fan myself, but it's it's getting to be much. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that part of the reason why it's feeling like Doechii is bordering on the point of overexposure is because, like I said before, hip hop in a lot of ways has gone back. I said this in the diss track video. Hip hop is not the big homogenous blob that it was when I was in high school, right? Like hip hop was still very much regional, but every region, you feel me, had the time to shine and be like, uh, we're the arbiters now. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, when I was in high school, that was well, by the time I was in middle school, it was Atlanta. Then it was, Houston for a bit. Then it was, I guess you could say it was New Orleans by way of Wayne. Not really. It was more so Cash Money than it was New Orleans. It was more so a label than it was a region that was running things. But y'all kind of get what I'm saying, right? But now, you have it where it's not so much that it's regions now, but it's niches. You dig what I'm saying? Whatever your particular niche is, you can find it. There isn't any one motion that has such a a vice grip on the discourse, a vice grip on the way that things is moving. Um, that you can say that this is it. You know what I mean? Um, so uh, even though, and again, I think that a lot of this is also a reaction. You feel me? To because Doechii is not the first of her kind, not even in this era. There is a perception, I think. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think that there's a perception that theater kids are taking over. You understand what I'm saying? And uh, the folks that are not really with that wave, you understand what I'm saying? They're gonna push back against it. Every generation of hip hop kind of creates itself, right? And it's kind of sort of defined by one real wave. Like uh before Run DMC, hip hop didn't really have a wave. Hip hop was still largely indistinguishable from funk and disco and all that, and we kind of established that. Then Run DMC, came out, everything, and it was at that point where you said that's that's what hip hop looks like. That's not only what it sounds like, but what it looks like. And you can make the argument that that's what it was until Straight Outta Compton, right? But I would argue that it's between, because I used to always say that it was Illmatic that really ushered in the new era. You know what I mean? That ended golden age for good. I think that there's a good enough argument to be made between Illmatic and 36 Chambers. The 36 Chambers really laid down the blueprint. That's kind of what I'm getting at, right? Is that you know the way that we consume music now, there isn't really the last base of hip hop was Drake. Drake and Migos. You know what I mean? Drake and Migos, I think, are the last uh singular singular act that you can point at and say, this is what the 2010s sounded like. You can't really do that with with this decade now. You feel me? Because again, whatever you want is right there. If you want trap, it's right there. If you want street hop, it's right there. And Future has an argument too. Future has I think between, but for me personally, I would settle between Drake and Migos. But I think Future has a solid enough argument too. In the mainstream's eyes, that the sound of this current decade or this current iteration of hip hop, the sound is Kendrick or Kendrick adjacent. You understand what I'm saying? Um, and so anything that is similar to that, anything that comes close to that, again, theater kid rap. You understand what I'm saying? That theater kid vibe, you know, that thinking rap, not necessarily conscious, but thinking rap. You understand what I'm saying? I think this is what I think. I think it's a combination of labels and fan bases that are doing that. You understand what I'm saying? Because and I don't want to get too what's the word? Um not philosophical. I'm psychological. I don't want to get too psychological with this, but you feel me? These were the kids that in a lot of ways they were the weirdos growing up. You understand what I'm saying? And so they have I'm saying this as a weirdo myself. You understand what I'm saying? These are the kids that they were the weirdos in high school. You feel me? And so now you feel me? They see somebody who reflects their experience or reflects their sensibilities, and now we have the power. Now you understand? We are the arbiters of culture. Now everybody, shut up and take a seat so that we can have our time in the sun. Doechii fans 10 years ago would have been the ones that would say, have you heard MF Doom? What do you think about MF Doom? Oh, but MF Doom is the greatest rapper of all time. That's what Doechii fans today would have been that 10 years ago. MF Doom, MF Doom. When you gonna do an MF Doom video, Bill? When you gonna talk about MF Doom? That is them. There is no single arbiter of the culture anymore. It's just we don't live in an ecosystem that is conducive for that. Yeah. Because like Sean said on his, Doechii is not so ubiquitous to the point that you can't get away from her. You understand what I'm saying? We got Spotify now, we got Tidal now, we got YouTube music. You feel me? 10 and 15 years ago, we ain't had that. You understand what I'm saying? Kanye came on the radio, you was gonna be listening to Kanye. You understand what I'm saying? That's just what it was going to be. You don't you don't really have that no more. You dig? So I say all of that to get to the point that I do very much feel like we're getting to where we're beginning to toe that line because again, we got to get to the point now of what purpose does this serve besides a very transparent and very I'm gonna keep it a buck, very cynical play at grabbing as many uh as many fans from over here as I possibly can. And I think that is to her detriment.